I've just discovered an important note from space. The Martians plan to throw a dance for all the human race.
I saw the laser shining red, so there I made my stop. But as I opened up the door and climbed the ladder down, I saw the Martians on the floor dancing to this sound. The Martian I was the first one there, and so I was surprised to see the Martian sisters down before my very eyes. They pulled out the motion and the hurry rolling through. I told them they were simple as the Martians wouldn't do.
Hello. I wasn't sure what was if anybody was going to be. I started a little bit late. Hopefully I can be heard okay. I'm kind of... hello, people. I'm going to test my audio real quick. For my voice, sounds like I can hear myself. Good. So I'm doing 1963. Not a lot of big milestones this year in 1963, but except for last year didn't do the Soviets did a Mars launch where they launched something called Mars 1 towards Mars in November, and it got there in June of 1963. So they launched it in November 1962, and it got there in June 1963. So I'm kind of catching up on that. So what I just launched was supposed to be the Soviet Mars. Although I'm really I'm really underestimating how easy or hard it is to to make this orbital transfer, because basically I have to give it enough speed. So I'm giving it speed enough to bulge out for Mars, and I just kind of wanted to get it done real quick before I actually started to do the regular orbital launches, because this isn't really an orbit. Well, this is an orbit, but I did it really fast. Good to see you, Peter. KJV. I remember you, dude. Would 1963 be Gemini instead of Mercury? To my knowledge, they didn't start Gemini yet. When did they start that? Gemini program. Actually, I guess technically it started in 1961, but I don't think they had their first launch until, this says 1965, so we still got two years. I'm sure they actually had it rolling. Like they're probably at that point even designing the spacecraft, because it's pretty much like another version of the Mercury. It's just bigger. It's because at that time they were even designing the Apollo spacecrafts. So all of them were each basically test vehicles for the next one. So all I'm trying to do is do a Mars flyby on our Mars, which is called Duna in this game. And my flyby, I always have trouble with these. And so what I'm basically doing at this point, actually, you know what? I'm gonna, if anybody particularly wants to join, because you're welcome to, because this is probably going to take me a minute to get this, because I really want to get this thing to do a Mars flyby. And then after I do that, basically what we got going is the Mercury program. We have Gordon Cooper's flight. He became a UFO nut later on, but he did an orbit. He took a bunch of pictures. If you ever look up some of Gordon Cooper's pictures, but he took some space photography. I believe he might have did that on Gemini, actually, because I don't think they had a lot of room for cameras in this one. But some of these guys went up multiple times at this point, because Mercury was just, they went up and they were floating around. Gordon Cooper did many orbits. However, again, it wasn't until the Gemini program when they went up and they started to do all the crazy stuff. They did EVAs where they left the spacecraft, tested spacesuits. They did orbital rendezvous where they met up with each other and that sort of thing, and docked. Oops. No problem, man. Might not be watching right away. So yeah, because I want to get close enough to just see the planet, because I think it looks cool for this particular spacecraft. So yeah, so at this point, again, 1962, 63, they were already launching stuff to Venus and Mars. Now they weren't hitting them; they were just doing flybys, but accordingly, they were close enough to. Well, they would have been close enough to take some pictures, but most of these earlier flights, all they did was flyby. They didn't. Either the spacecraft failed, or something went wrong on it. However, again, with math, all this stuff is just predictable. So once you have something in space, like there's literally nothing in space. So once something gets up enough speed, the speed is built up energy that once the energy is transferred into velocity, which is just how fast you're going, once there's nothing to slow down your speed. Oh, come on. I might just do this later, because I might just do this before I end the stream, because this is going to stay up here. Come on. Oh, let's see, that's close. This is where they're both going to, yeah. I'm just going to go back to the Space Center. So I'm going to do that after this, before I end the stream. So I'm going to just do an orbital launch really quick. Orbital launch is going to be, so I'm going to do Gordon Cooper's launch from the Mercury Atlas flight. So at this point, again, going through just the history of the American program, because what I just launched was this here is a Soviet, but whose designs of the Russian rockets haven't really changed. So let me move to the Mercury. So again, the early Mercury were the Mercury Redstones, which were using the Juno rocket, which they just did ballistic orbit. A ballistic orbit is merely just a big arc, just up and down. Because again, if you just launch something straight up, a couple hundred miles into space, and even if it goes over 100 miles, it's going to be into space. It's basically just at a point where there's no more air. But even if you just launch it straight up, it's still going to do an arc. It's never just going to come straight back down. And that arc is always going to be just how it is. And this is my silly looking Atlas rocket, the original Atlas that has the drop-off boosters, because at that point they didn't really have technology to make the rocket go to throttle the speed back and forth. So they dropped off the engine, this little engine stage with side rocket, and they left the middle one on there. So I'm gonna get my little Gordon Cooper dude. Gordon Kerman's ready to go. Oh, so this is also the year the first woman went into space. Valentina Tereshchenko, I believe, or Tereshkova. Yeah, Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman in space by the Soviets. And I'll probably do her launch too. I have Valentina Kerman going on. Let's change this to our not the red. Whoops. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you, Brother Timothy. And yeah, like I said, so what I'm going to do is this is the original Mercury program, which is when the Americans were just trying to launch one man in a tiny space capsule into orbit around the planet. They had already launched a person just up into space, and they were testing these things that are just, I mean, they always remind me of like just if you've ever been in a walk-in freezer where it's just totally self-contained environment. I mean, I'm not saying a walk-in freezer would survive in space, but so anyway, let's get it up. I can just leave the name since it's just going to get destroyed anyway. Did have some problems with it last time because the parachutes were not up to. Oh, yeah, okay. So this still has the old parachutes, which apparently don't work. Which apparently I didn't save it. So I'm going to have to switch up. Ah. How did I not save that? Okay, no worries. It's only going to take a second. So I found out in testing this spacecraft that the parachute that I had on there was not quite up to snuff. Oops. Didn't want to do that. Right before I completely redesign this spacecraft accidentally. Let's just move that in there. So this thing only had two shoot at a smaller drogue chute to slow it down once it actually once it slowed down. So we're going to see it re-enter the atmosphere. Let me move this, just tuck that in. When it re-enters, I mean, the air itself is going to slow it down. But once it gets slow enough that the parachute will work, then a smaller chute comes out to slow it down even more, and then a larger chute comes out to slow it down even more. Okay, I think we're good. We still got Mr. Gordon Kerman over there. Good. And yeah, last time I did one from actually inside the cockpit of this thing, because you can look at it from the view of the cockpit. All right, so let's get out to the launch pad. It kind of bothers me that that I didn't save it from when I had fixed the parachute problem, because now I'm wondering what other problems there might be, but we'll see what happens. Come on, SteamYard. I hate when it minimizes this stuff. There we go. All right, so we got our little dude in there. We can actually see him if we use this particular view. And yeah, the Atlas rocket, again, was originally a nuclear missile designed to be able to launch itself and hit Russia. I mean, that's what all of these rockets basically started as. That was the only excuse for designing these types of things, was to build nukes. And then other people were like, hey, why don't we do some space stuff? And then, of course, there were treaties saying you couldn't have nuclear weapons in orbit and that sort of thing, which, okay. I mean, supposedly it worked. All right, so let me launch this thing up. So again, we're just going to go in a simple orbit. This thing is barely... Oh, man. We'll see how it goes. I remember to add a monopropellant. Actually, this thing should be fully tested anyway, at least to work. The only problem was the parachute, so let me stop fretting. Check my staging real quick. So these engines are all going to go off, and then it's going to separate. We have two of these, and then we got the... You know what? I'm going to do a test real quick before I do a launch, because I don't trust these parachutes. I don't want to do the whole thing and then kill my little guy. So I'm going to demonstrate once again, because I did this on the last one. I'm going to demonstrate how this escape rocket launch works. So if there was a problem where the rocket started to explode, even in mid-flight, this top rocket here, which gets shot off once it successfully gets to a certain height, that top rocket would actually pull the space capsule off the exploding rocket, which, if it works, it's going to happen right now. So I'm going to hit this. Let me back up a bit so it's not so loud. There it goes. And now parachute. Oops. Didn't mean to do that, but okay. All right, so looks like parachutes are working. There's our rocket down there. Yeah, okay. All right, good. So let's revert back to launch. We're just testing, making sure. All right, so we're going to go full blast. These three engines are going to go pretty slow. Oh yeah, I forgot. So the way I successfully did this, basically, I am going to try to launch it as straight up as possible until I get so high that the air pressure is very low, and then I'm going to arc it over very abruptly. That's not usually how they're launched, but because of the way this rocket is designed, it's pretty much the best way to do it in this. I'm going to still tuck it over a little bit. Oops, let me get rid of all of that. So looking at where this thing is coming up, you can see the arc is already happening. Like even if you throw a football or shoot a bullet out of a rifle, it's going to make an arc like this. Now our arc at this point is going up about 10 miles, 11 miles. Technically, this game is not to scale with real life, but I just include that. It's supposed to be 13,000 meters, 14,000 meters, or kilometers. But with the scale the game makes, I just generally just say miles. So 17 miles, 18 miles. Now that's how high we are going to get, even if the rocket engine stopped. But because the rocket engine is still going, we're still adding speed. We're adding energy to, and the rocket fuel energy is basically transforming into speed. And we need a lot of it because you're going through all of this air pressure. So we're already past the thicker layers of the atmosphere. And I should probably at some point kill that. So there went again, the technology wasn't good enough yet. Part of that. Just to do all this weird stuff with the rocket, so that's why that happens. All right, so now, so we want to go. I've heard people wonder why it goes into an arc like this instead of just going up into space. So if you just put it up into space like that, it's just going to drop right back down again. You need the velocity to make the arc. Right now, I'm still going to hit the water. I still have the arc. I'm only going to go up 85 miles, which is fine. So let me start looking at this. This arc needs to turn into a circle all the way around this entire globe. Now the thing is, the entire time, as long as this rocket's been burning engine, it's been building up exponential speed. So I've been going like in this 1,000 meters a second, to 1,200 meters a second, and that's not decreasing. As long as there's nothing that happens with my engine and that doesn't decrease, it's just going to keep going and going, and it's going to get faster. And I don't know if I'm going to actually make orbit on this. Oops, where did it go? It's bugging out. Looks close to orbit. So you can see the arc is getting bigger, and it's all right. So I did not make it to orbit, but I might have enough. Man, I'm so close. I don't know if the game's bugging out or what. So I can't see. Guy's like invisible or something. Never had that happen before. I need to hurry up because I'm currently just going to fall right back through the atmosphere. Well, yeah, it looks like that's really not cool. So oh, there he is. All right, so I just separated him from the rocket. I was just really far away. And I wanted to see that close up. So anyway, yeah, I just separated because that rocket engine was empty. Although I'm still not quite in orbit. I got to get a little bit more. So again, we're still in a ballistic arc. We're not in orbit yet. You can see this, the arc of where I was going, which was just up and down, is now over and over because we got horizontal speed. But I still need to increase it just a little bit more. Now I have what's called RCS thrusters here. It's a different type of fuel, but I should be able to get into an orbit just using that. Second, you should see this circle is going to become, this arc is going to become a complete circle. Maybe not a perfect circle. And let me get rid of this picture. And if you can see these numbers down here, it's not very big. One of them says 93 point something. The other one says 39 point something. 38 point, or negative. So apoapse is the highest point of your orbit, and we're almost there, which is the highest point of our arc at this point because there is no orbit yet. The periaps is the lowest point. Now it's a negative number because it's still, we're not in a circumference yet. So at that number, the periaps is negative until that becomes positive and actually evens up. So if this was 93 apoaps by 93 periaps, that would be a perfect circle. Right now, our apoaps is 93 and our periaps is negative 21. So we need to quickly need to keep doing that. These engines are not very strong. And this is going to show us when we finally get into an orbit, but I still want to look at it from the map view. So yeah, so that circle is slowly getting wider at the other side because we're increasing speed from space, and you're already at this point going so fast. But oh, there we go. We have a periaps on the other side of the planet finally. So now you can see we actually have an imperfect circle and up. As soon as that circle gets up to above 70 miles. So again, so now we've gone from an arc to a circle. I hope we have enough fuel to do this. Yeah, pretty sure we do. Matter of fact, let me warp actually up to. Oh no! I'm already past it. Whoops. Not cool. So yeah, so once that gets to 70, because 70 in the game, 70 miles is like is about where space starts. In real life, it's not so cut and dry. It's more, it's like a spectrum of how thick the atmosphere is. So as you can see, the arc, because we launched from right around here, and the arc became a. We launched from over here. Where did we launch from? Yeah, right here we launched from. We did have an arc, but from adding this sideways velocity, we have turned that arc into a circle, and now I'm evening the circle out to where one side of it is the same distance away from the center of the Earth or from the surface of the Earth, however you want to look at that. So now our periapsis is up to 60. So we're 92 miles by 62 miles. Oh, and I just totally ran out of monopropellant fuel. So yeah, now we're still in orbit. Now I could probably do that wouldn't, being that low, it still wouldn't take me out of orbit, but it would dip me down far enough to where I'd probably only be able to orbit up about 3 times. Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to just add a little bit more monopropellant, just enough, because that was just barely in a perfect 70 mile. So I'm gonna just pull out a little bit of that emergency fuel and make sure we get into an orbit that's not going to decay. There we go. Oh, we don't. Let's get rid of that emergency fuel. Okay, so now our circular orbit is circular enough that it's not going to dip down into the atmosphere. So we're in a 94. So it means our highest point in the sky is 94 miles, 94.5 miles. And our lowest point, which is the periapsis, is 70. So at that point, we're just floating around. That's an orbit. You know what? What fun do we have that? All right. So the way this thing gets down is it needs to actually just simply reverse what it just did, just by a little bit, which is flip itself around. Now this thing has retro rockets strapped to the back of it. So all this thing needs to do is turn around and then decrease its orbital speed. Some other stuff about 1963. A lot of civil rights activity happening. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. There was also the March on Washington happened. Vietnam was really ramping up, going crazy. Beatlemania was just getting started. Cuba, because last year we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. So at this point, America did everything it could to isolate Cuba from the rest of the world, basically. General Hospital just got started as a TV show. Zip codes had just become a new thing in America. Let's see. There was a KKK terrorist bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, of a Baptist church to protest integration, where 4 black kids were murdered. The ending of this year is when, of course, JFK was shot. A lot of people's eyes were opened this year to the fact that there's a lot of wacky stuff going on in the world that that maybe people didn't really want to know about, but they needed to know about. Because at that point, a lot of people still seem to have a really starry-eyed idea of king and country, and suddenly the president gets shot, and this is one of the most traumatic events that's happened since living memory, maybe World War II in general. But as soon as Kennedy was shot, and of course that was later on this year. So yeah, what else? Ring of Fire from Johnny Cash. The Twilight Zone episode with William Shatner. That came out this year too. It's amazing how quickly everything got sort of going. All right, so we're going to re-enter this thing into the atmosphere. I'm not sure if I have a machine running next to me, which I just turned off. And let's okay, so we're gonna take Mr. Gordon Kerman. We're gonna give him a couple orbits. So let's fast forward this a little bit. Yeah, Gordon Cooper was the actual Mercury 7 astronaut. And yeah, again, he later on became big time UFO nut. Now, last year, John Glenn. Now, when he first went up here, he claimed he saw like little firefly things floating around. Those were later on discovered to just be like ice capsules that were hitting the sunlight and just glowing, and that's just what they looked like. And just the way he was seeing them, he was really. I think he'd been reading a lot of too many Flash Gordon comics. So I want to make sure this guy gets down in water in the ocean like he's supposed to. So I'm gonna actually do his is retro burn from right here over here, which is like the opposite of the ocean in the daytime, and hope that, let's see, if we want the periaps, if we want them to come down about right here, let's see, right here. So we're going to do the burn right the exact other side, because where it's going to decrease is going to be on the other side of the orbit. So let's add our maneuver. Oops. I mean, let's just warp to that place. Why won't I just warp there? Okay. Oh, that doesn't mean warp. That means create a... Well, that's dumb. Let's just delete that. All right, so where do we want to be? We want to be exactly opposite of right here, which is right over here. Warp there. Okay. Alrighty, that guy is going to go there. So what we're going to do is make sure he maneuvers backwards. And again, the back retro rockets on this thing were so primitive. All they were solid. Solid fuel, which is just like powdered like pellets that just you let it on fire. Kind of like reminds me of like sparklers. Although really, really. All right, so let's turn around to the direction that we're facing. I wish I could kind of do this slower, but so I'm going to hit these things and they're going to go off. And what's going to happen on our orbit is the other side of this is basically going to drop. It's not going to be a circle around the planet anymore. It's just going to be in an arc. So we're going to hit that. There we go. And as you can see, that's dropping us down big time. Oh no, I just remembered I just did something very wrong. It's because I had done that infinite propellant, so these things, yeah, that's not good. Let me get rid of that. That's what I get for cheating. I added infinite propellant, which really that last burn was only supposed to happen for like 3 seconds, which only would have dropped me down a little bit because I had infinite propellant set. Oh, that's really stupid. That's so bad. I mean, it's fine. Although, you know, I can fix it. I want to come down during the daytime. See if that actually, probably not. This isn't going to make any difference. Bummer. We'll have to do it better again. Because I don't think, yeah, it's not going to be worth trying to speed us back up so that we'll hit back. But we're still landing. So we're still going to see a light show. So this is going to be, because it only, I mean, we're still going super fast. We're still going like almost 2,000 meters a second. It just slowed us down enough to where our orbit dips down into the atmosphere. So now we're dipping down enough. You can see this thing is getting red hot because once you get down close enough to the surface to where there's a lot more air, there's a lot more atmosphere. That's air molecules you're slamming into very fast. And the reason why you see this this effect is from plasma being generated because the air is too slow. to get out of the way, because you're traveling so fast that you're basically hitting the air, and it's squeezing the air flat. It's squeezing the air molecules so that the electrons themselves are being just shoved out of the molecules. And whoa, we got sonic booms. Oops. Yeah, and it's causing this ionization effect, which is what that is. Ion or plasma effect. Plasma is sort of a weird state in between. It's not even a state in between gas and oh no. All right, that parachute should not have done that so quickly. All right, yeah, I totally forgot to do anything with our parachutes. All right, so that was a little. At least I think he's going to hit water. But yeah, these guys generally weren't supposed to land at night, but they did land in the ocean. If you look up any of the videos or whatever of these guys getting picked up, they landed usually in the Pacific Ocean, I believe. And they had the Navy, and they had all these ships waiting for them to be picked up. One of the guys actually, Gus Grissom, he lost his thing because the hatch blew improperly, and he couldn't get out on time or something, or the thing started flooding like immediately. As soon as the hatch blew, like it started flooding, and he had to get out of there like really fast, or he would have just fell to the bottom of the ocean inside of this thing. Yeah, that was Gus Grissom's flight. That must have been pretty scary. All right, good. That last parachute deployed. All right, so he's coming down at night, but that's okay. We're still about a mile or so up. So let's fast forward that. We're still going way fast. There we go. The last parachute just went down. Good. Yeah, and the last one I did one of these entire Mercury missions from inside the capsule. Oops, the wrong one. If I do this, I can actually go for pilot view where this is a functioning nav ball that you can use, and you can actually use some of these controls, which is kind of cool. Let me fast forward to get this guy down. And then I'm going to do the Russian one, which is basically, it's similar. The Russians using a rocket to get a person into orbit. Although I'm going to do Valentina Tereshkova. Come on. Nice moonlit sky. I think that sky is from, like, the only mod I'm using here is the atmosphere mod. There we go. Okay. So now all the Kerbal ships are going to go pick them up and recover. Kevin's Biblical Discussions. Good to see you, brother. Very good to see you. Hope everything's going well. All right, so that mission's done. When I wanted to start doing the Russian launches, I actually kind of wanted to start doing those from one of the other launch sites, but I kind of couldn't decide which one. And something else I wanted to do for this year, but I didn't have a chance to, was I wanted to start doing X-15 flights. So they invented there's a experimental airplane called the X-15, which basically it was a rocket plane. They strapped it onto the bottom of like a B-52 or whatever, and they flew it up as high as they could, and they dropped it, and then they launched it, and it was just a plane they sent it, and then just to see how high they could get it. Uh, a lot of people got killed trying to land it, but some people actually made it past the space line to where you can't even maneuver it anymore. You're just simply at the whim of your ballistic trajectory. Oh, and just an idea of some of the other spacecrafts launched this year. And in total, in 1963, there were 96 spacecraft, at least attempts, made at launching spacecrafts. Successful ones. So there's a list of all of the ones from, and it was just between Soviet and America. Telstar 2. So if we were in the last video I did was Telstar 1, which is a AT&T satellite. So it was first used for television programs, that sort of thing. Mercury 9, I believe, is what I'm doing now. Yeah, Mercury 9. And yeah, this one's going to be a little looser because I'm not really going to try to follow timeline, just as long as it happened in 1963, of course. Because again, a lot of the larger ones, not a lot of milestones were made in 1963, except for these continuations of putting people in orbit. Luna 4, I could probably also do that one, although that one also failed. But it was another one. The Luna missions are ones where they tried to get into like lunar orbit. This one apparently just ended up flying by the moon. So throughout this entire, throughout these entire time period of years, rather, both places are doing things all over the place. It's not just a singular experimentation happening. They were launching stuff towards Venus, towards Mars, towards the moon, crashing stuff into the moon. So yeah. So let me see. What other launch sites do we have? A crater launch site, my Cove launch site, Glacier launch site. Yeah. Let me switch this to because there's a, there we go. There's the airplane hangar. So I could launch this thing. So yeah, I'm going to do the Russian Vostok missions. Vostok missions. Okay, that's what their human spaceflight missions were called. Oh, it looks like I did start to develop a X-15. I could try to mess with it on stream. It might be kind of boring, but that's kind of what the X-15 looked like. Like you can see one in the Smithsonian. Like they actually have one. I mean, most of this body of it was just rocket fuel that they dropped it from a giant plane, and they launched it. And yeah, like Neil Armstrong was in one. Some of the people that later became astronauts flew in these things. Those pilots were just nuts. I mean, these are just nutty people that just like, yeah, I'll get into this thing, and you can drop me from like 5 miles in the sky, and they'll like launch this thing up into like right past the atmosphere. Yeah, this thing would still take a while to design because it also had its own RCS system, the reaction controls thrusters, so that once it got into space, you could still maneuver it around. But that was what the Americans were doing with that. I should still be able to load the Vostok. Oops, looks like I'm gonna need to adjust that a bit. That's awkward. I need to find what the center part is so I can select the whole thing and drop it down a little bit. Well, it doesn't matter actually. So I'm just going to try to launch it like that because it doesn't matter once I get it out there. So we got Valentina in there. I'm going to just presume at this point my staging is good, and because I know I've already done this before with the Russian Vostok. And again, the Vostok was the forerunner to the Soyuz program, which is what is being used to this very day. And this rocket design is used to this very day. Oh, wait a minute. Desert airfield, island airfield. Oh, I guess not. Runway, island airfield, desert airfield. I thought. All right. Nope. All right, we're just gonna launch it from. Which one am I thinking of? I think I'm thinking of Boomerang then. So I decided I wanted to use one for one, one for like once I got to the China program maybe, but this should do. All right. Let me stop being all. Kind of want to switch it to some Russian music. All right, there's Valentina in there. Yeah, because I wanted to just change it up. That's supposed to be thunder. That's really weird. She might have launched at night. Thing is, like these ships have like batteries in them and stuff. Oh, look at that low amount of. Oh, I know why it has solid fuel. All right, there we go. Just a little bit of warning. Yeah, you know, if I launch these Russian ones, I should launch them from the desert airfield. Yeah, I'll do it from here for now, though. Just 'cause I think it looks cool. Because these were the Russians launched theirs from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, which pretty much is giant desert flats. Which I do have a desert. There's a desert airfield in this game, but that's okay. We'll launch her from here for now. It's flat enough, and the mountains look cool. Whoops. You know what? I do want to try to launch this from a desert, just to see what happens. I don't think I've ever launched one from the desert yet. And if that works, I think I'm going to actually revert to vehicle assembly. Yeah, and then I'm just going to actually start launching all the Russian ones from the desert launch site. There we go. Because when I was designing the airplanes, I was launching some of the American ones from the desert because it's sort of like the Americans had Whitestone or Redstone. There's these places in the middle of like New Mexico where it was just a lot of flat desert land. When they got the German rockets for the first time, they started launching them just straight up as high as they could. See how high they got. All right, let's launch up Valentina Tereshkova into orbit here. Actually, in honor of Valentina Tereshkova. Hold up. I wanted some good folk. There we go. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. That's a little too orchestral. Well. Yeah, let's try this one. I think I'm going to do this from this view as much as possible, so you can see the arc growing as I'm being launched upward, continuously adding speed. Oh, I gotta get rid of those side rockets. Yeah, we need to arc over right now. All right, well, this thing is, these engines are very powerful. They're certainly taking us to space. Our apoapsis is 73 miles. However, right now we're currently at 50 miles, but we're rapidly increasing in speed. I need to actually tilt it over so I can decrease our upward speed, but increase. Oops, I don't want to do it too much. But increase our horizontal speed, because again, we do want the arc, because we don't want to go up too high. We want to go over, because we need to clear the curvature of the planet, which I believe I'm about to do. So if we look at the map view, you can see the arc is getting wider. My apoapse, I'm not going up anymore. I'm going sideways. So my apoapse is not going up that much. The arc is getting wider, and it's going to become a circle once I clear the curvature of the planet, which I'm about to do in a minute. Although I need to slow down, because otherwise I'm going to get into a really bad circular orbit. Actually, yeah, let me slow it down. We're kind of in orbit now, however, it's really precarious. And we need to deploy that. There's our... Actually, yeah, we need to... What's going on? There we go. Let's decouple that. So here's our actual Russian spacecraft. So we still have a tiny engine booster rocket that's going to be used to just help our orbit just a bit. So our apoapse, which is 109. So I'm going to warp this up to 109. So that's the highest point in our arc. Because if you can see, the lowest point in our orbit is still only 5 miles, which means we're not going to stay in orbit. It's just going to, as soon as we hit the atmosphere, we're going to hit, as soon as we get under 70, we hit the atmosphere. So what we need to do is boost this up just a bit more. And so yeah, let me do it a bit slower. So you can see as I'm increasing the speed, our periapse is growing, and now it's 100 by 77. So our periapse is now 77 miles because now the arc has now bulged out on that other side and become a circle. So now we're in a nice circular orbit. So we're fine. So we don't need this anymore. So I'm decreasing or detaching that final block of that booster, and now we just have our little craft here with Tereshkova. Valentina is in it. Yeah, these are the early models. Later on, what would become the Soyuz, which is used now, which looks a whole lot different. They would get the solar panels, all that kind of stuff, and a couple extra sections, a toilet, that sort of thing. So, yeah, first woman in space, 1963. All right, there goes the other part of that rocket. Skyglass? Is that a mod on this, Timothy? That almost sounds like a. I know there's a couple different mods you can put on to adjust the background, what the background of space looks like, or it might be an app. But no, I don't think I ever have tried that. Oh, you already said that. Oh, you know what? I think I might actually have it. If it's the flight tracker, if you actually hold up your phone into the sky, if you see an airplane, it'll actually like put a little animation next to it and show you where it came from, what it's doing. Pretty cool. All right, we can see inside there. She's having a good time. All right, let's give her a couple orbits around the planet, just for the sake of posterity. All right, well, that's fine. All these things are fuel tanks, or rather tanks for the monopropellant, which is the maneuver thrusters. And now this one had a little bit more of a little bit higher, more advanced retro rocket, I believe. Because yeah, at this point, the Americans were and the Soviets were not quite neck and neck in their technology, but they would start to. Or, I mean, they would start to diverge a lot. They seemed to be neck and neck rather, but it was basically sort of like the broke clock is right twice a day. Because the Russians really started to just kind of push it to get things done quickly. Where about the Americans did it a lot more slowly, but kept more carefully. And I think that style paid off for them better. Sort of like a tortoise and the hare thing, I guess. Although instead of like the hare like napping, the hare would force its workers to work overtime to where they had no sleep, and they would end up destroying like entire regiments of workers, like in horrifying rocket explosions. All right, so let's drop this thing back down. Now, these guys did land on land, so let's add the maneuver. So that now we are able to control our retro rocket, which means I can better plan when this thing is going to be going. Now, let's see. Actually, where are we? That's 3 minutes from now. We're going to have to do one more drop. See, I don't want to accidentally. There's a lot of room to hit water here. Let's drop it down about there. It's going to slow down abruptly. All right, I'm just going to take it from there. So let's warp to that maneuver. And then we got to turn around and do a 21-second burn. All right. The retro rocket, we're going to activate it. Now, the interesting thing about these Russian human crafts where they did not come down in one piece. And also the cosmonaut did not land in the craft. They actually jumped out of the craft with a parachute on right before the thing landed, which I'm going to try to do, hopefully successfully. That was kind of a secret for a while. I think that information didn't get out even until like the Soviet Union crashed, because then that kind of killed some of the records, because technically it wasn't a full-blown spacecraft if the pilot didn't land with the craft, if they had to jump out of it beforehand. All right, so it's coming down in the atmosphere. Let's speed it up. So now at this point, we are in a free fall. You can see our path is going to take us, hopefully not in the water. Whoa. We should slow down really fast. We're still technically in orbit. Our periapsis is 6 miles, but that should slow up a lot once we start hitting the air, which we're already hitting the air, which means we gotta, let's separate. Let's get it back over where the astronaut is. So we're in this little ball now. You know what? I'm not sure if I should have did that yet. I don't remember what my heat sink situation is. Oh no. This could be pretty bad. Hopefully this thing survives the heat because I don't know. Let me look back at the other. So I didn't have a heat shield on this part of it. And then on this part of it, all right, I'm just going to hope I didn't need a heat shield. I don't remember what I did with that, with the heat shield. Unless I wasn't supposed to separate that. No, that's not right. Well, we'll see. Oh, man. We are going to hit the water, aren't we? Oh, no, not necessarily. We're still pretty high up. We're still very high up. This is, but you can see the continent coming up that I hope to be hitting. Completely out of control. But you can see now we are getting locked into a certain heading because now we're hitting the air. We should start to see the plasma displacement soon. All right, let's speed it up. And at some point, she is going to have to jump out. All right, let's see how fast it's slowing us down, because I'm hoping... Oh no, that's slowing us down way fast. Doesn't, so you can see our arc is basically going away big time. That might, looks like we're still going to hit the water. Maybe. Yeah. That aiming wasn't too good. Ah. All right, I'm just speeding that up. That's lame. It's going to come down in the water. Did not want it to come down in the water. Just barely missing the land there. But I managed to hit all the way over here, so that was really off. Slowed down so fast, that's ridiculous. Okay, so that thing's going to land. I'll probably just unload it before they land. Yeah, I don't think you can... Well, I'll let her do her EVA. So she's going to jump out of there. Now she's going to take off, and she has her own parachutes. And I almost just want to revert it so that she comes down on the land. But the last one I did for the American ones, it came down on it came down on land when it shouldn't have. So now the Russian one is coming down on water when it shouldn't have. So I guess it's just makes sense. There's that other one crashing. Recover both of them. This is gonna take way long. I can drop her down really fast. Can I get her slow enough to... There we go. Yeah. Yeah, if the Russians did this in water, people would be really hypothermic. All right. We're going to recover all that. Yeah, I kind of wish I, again, had done the X15. I might do the X15 in a separate, on its own video. That's not a live stream. Just because the X15 on its own right is cool enough, I think. I don't know what that is. Let's warp to the morning.
Being the genius of our time, ladies and gentlemen, you and I make him feel happy with a nice ovation as we're meeting green. Little Stevie Wonder. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, so I've been going for like almost an hour and a half. These are usually like 2.5 hours, but again, there's not a lot of extraordinary stuff that happened this year with the launches. There was more Vostok, which I just did, more of the Mercury launches, which I just did. Actually, was there only the one Mercury launch? Looks like there might have only been one Mercury launch. I did, which is okay. Mercury 9. Yeah, so I just did Mercury 9. Could do another. Now there were 2 Vostoks. And the Luna, so what happened with this Luna one? I think it was just the moon flyby. Eventually, third attempt to perform a lunar soft landing was the first to... This third Soviet attempt to perform a soft landing was the first to left Earth orbit during the coast of the moon. I thought Luna 1 did that. This planetary probe was the third Soviet lunar soft landing probe. Carried an imaging system and a radiation detector. The spacecraft consisted of a cylindrical section containing maneuvering and landing rockets and fuel. So, the lander would be ejected into the surface after the main body touched down. So this was very similar to the Americans' first Ranger. So this had something that they wanted to... that detached from the main thing, landed its own rockets, and actually tried to do a type of soft landing on the moon. I'm wondering if I should try to do that. I should probably turn this. Young Stevie Wonder in 1963. It's kind of amazing. So this was a secret mission. It was not disclosed. So Americans didn't know about this at the time. So on April 4th, it would pass close to the moon's surface, indicating for the first time that the probe would not orbit or land. Speculation the probe might have... Yeah, I don't think I'm going to mess with that at the moment. Let me see what my current Russian lunar probe looks like. Pretty sure I launched in this Moldinoya rocket. kind of want to launch this little thing as if it's the Looney. You know what? Let me just look it up. Luna 4, because yeah, I think it was a complete failure. Luna 4, because if it had a name like Cosmos. Probe or Sputnik 26. Yeah, it was a failure. 12 days. They lost contact with it. They wanted to, because yeah, at this point, what they were doing was they were launching stuff to hit the moon. However, they were detaching rocket-powered tools, which so that they would have it almost do a soft landing. Although they never really got it working. Upper stage, restarted to place it into a translinear trajectory. So first they got into a parking orbit, which we're cool with that. Now things with the design of the spacecraft. I don't want it to just be some random spacecraft, but it's cool. Yeah, it was an attempt at the first soft landing on the moon. It missed the moon, remaining in Earth orbit instead. You know what? Since I really want to know what it looks like now. Here's Looney 2, actually. That looks very similar to the other. What kind of rocket? It used a Molniya rocket, which is this gigantic rocket. Luna program. There's no picture of what it would have looked like. That's the problem. Because I would assume it looked similar to... Like, that's Luna 5. Does this have it? What the next one is? I don't have any pictures of these guys. Look at all these failed Luna flights. Finally, Luna 5. First, it intended, so another one to intended to pick. So they kept trying this. The Russians definitely tried stuff over and over and over and over. I mean, the Americans did too, but like you can see, like we had like 6 different failures of this program until they finally did it right. But the Americans were more, again, they were more sort of deliberate in testing. So Luna 5 impactor looked like this thing. Yeah. So I kind of remember building this. And you can see how these things eventually changed up, because here's, where's the one from later on? Here's Luna 15. This is one that actually landed properly and took back off after scooping up some dirt. You know what? It almost looks like the Venus one, so I think I'm just going to repurpose the Mars one that I just launched. Nah, you know what? I'm not even going to mess with that. I'm going to try to do my Mars flyby and then call it a wrap. All right, so let me go back to my tracking. So at the beginning of this video, I started a Mars. The Russians tried to do a Mars mission. Oops. And I had launched it. I called it Duna. Where'd it go? Duna 1. It's still... Yep. Let's fly on Duna 1. And we're going to end this with a Mars flyby. Now, the real Mars 1 that the Russians did in 1963. They lost contact with the craft. However, they do believe that it did do a Mars flyby. I mean, it mathematically it did. Like they know which direction it was heading. They know how fast it was going. That sort of thing. So as long as you have those math calculations done properly, then you know where these things, you know what's going on. You know what? Is this thing enough? 64 by 600. All right. So I'm going to fix this orbit to a 600 mile orbit. Make it my maneuver a little bit easier. So 600 by 300. All right, that's fine, I guess. All right, let's move this back. I need to keep talking, otherwise this music is as low as I can make this music. All right, so let's get a maneuver, add a maneuver, add thrust. All right, we've just added thrust. Now let me adjust the direction of the thrust. In other words, where on our orbit are we going to apply this thrust? We do it in a place where it's going to intersect with the orbit of the planet, which right there is very close. All right, so let me just look closer there and make adjustments like so. All right, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. None of that matters. There's likely a better way to calculate this, which I'm not doing. That's kind of... so close, but like, why isn't it actually showing it linking up there? That's what's annoying. Oh, there it was. I just saw it link up. There it did. So that has, we have an intersection happening. 36,000 kilometers away from the planet. Let's see if I can make that a little closer. That's 36,000. 40,000, so that's not closer. 32. That's even farther. 30. 24. 18, very good. 16. So I'm adjusting. So these little things are like adjusting up and down, back and forth, forward and back, right and left. It's like a X, Y, Z axis of where you're going to head the spacecraft and before you actually do a maneuver burn. So what I'm doing is adjusting these to the point where I'm making this as close as possible to this planet, based on where we know it's going to be. All right, 13, 13.8, 13.7. That's really not decreasing a lot. So basically, I'm just trying to kind of zero it a little better, where it's as close as possible. Because right now it's about at 10,000 kilometers away. I'd like it to be close enough to where you can actually see the planet. I mean, 10,000 kilometers is not bad, but matter of fact, we're like 19 seconds from, or no, we're at this maneuver now. So I'm going to actually burn this maneuver. Do it. 21-second burn. So we're still really close to Earth. We're just in a very high orbit. So at this point, our orbit is going to be bulging out to where it's not even going to be in orbit anymore. It's going to leave the circles of the planet, which it's just done. All right. We're just going to kill that. All right, so now we were in orbit in a circle. That green line would have been a circle around the planet. We've just faced that direction that we've just charted, and we burned for 21 seconds the rocket fuel. So our circuit is now we've broken our orbit, and now we're going off in that direction. Now, once it gets past this area, we're essentially, actually, I'm going to fast forward it to where we do get past that area. There we go. We're really far away from the planet now. You can see how far away we're getting from the planet because I made it really fast. There's the planet really far away. And we'll be braking. Oh no probe control. This thing has a really bad. Are you serious? So I can't control this anymore. So I don't have a good enough radio system on this thing. That sucks. Didn't I fix the one for Mars or for Venus that I did? Or what's going on here? Is it because of the electricity? Oh, I forgot to do the solar panels. Whoops. You know what? I'm going to do that now. Oh, I hate these solar panels. I didn't want these solar panels. Oh, well. All right, that should give us electricity, but I think that's what, yeah. So yeah, I was wondering why. I thought I had enough. Even if I had the weakest radio, I should still at least be able to control it. All right, looking back at our rendezvous with Mars. So currently we are 41 kilometers, 41,000 kilometers. So I'm going to try to make some mid-course corrections to adjust this to get as close to Mars as possible without hitting it. I don't want it to be historic. And again, currently Mars is all the way over here. And because we know it's going to be over here in a couple months, we're aiming for where it's going to be in a couple months. That's the way aiming for these planets works. 41, 42. So I'm just seeing if there's any change I can make to these, to my heading, that's going to bring it really close to the planet, which it looks like there kind of is. That's 5,000 kilometers. 2,000. That looks like that's. Nope. Oh, look at that, 600 miles. 600. All right, now that has us hitting the planet, it looks like. Or no, wait, no, it doesn't. Dune periapsis. 41 kilometers. Yeah, that is hitting the planet, actually. For 41,000 meters. Let's adjust that back a little bit. $300 kilometers. I really. All right, 700 kilometers should be good enough. All right, let's warp to that burn. That's only like a split second burn. You know what? This thing This thing, I don't need this large rocket anymore. I don't even need this other one anymore. This doesn't have its own monopropellant. So we're going to decrease that thrust a lot. To face this in the right direction, first of all. That should be it. How close that even made us. These are so like pinpoint precise, it's ridiculous. So with that little bit of burning, I've just gotten, this says we're within 700 and some miles. So that's it. Let's see what happens. You know what? Might as well just detach that. That's as far as I'm going to do it. All right, so I'm going to fast forward it all the way. So this thing gets to Mars. Warp there. Let's see how long that's going to take. So yeah, it's like almost going to take like, it's a very long time, even for in-game, for that to get to Mars. That better not be hitting it. Oh no, here's it is. This is going to get us within. So again, this is where Mars currently is. So technically, as far as like real life, real time goes, Mars is right next to Earth. Right now, it's side by side with Earth. But this thing, here's our probe. It's now slowly getting closer and closer over here to Earth. It's basically, it's going to be rendezvousing with it. So here's Earth. Now we're leaving, and now we're getting closer to the red planet. And we will be, you can see we'll be intersecting. So we just came off of the green orbit, and now we're hitting the red orbit. Now it looks, now the planet is still behind us, but we're going to be catching up very soon. So we're going to warp right there. Now we can see 800 miles by 500. There we go. All right, can we see the planet from here yet? Doesn't look like I can find it. Oh, we're going to get really close to Mars's moon too, or to Duna's moon. Let's warp there. All right, so at some point we're getting really close to it. There we go. There we go. All right, so we just flew right in. So there's this game's version of Mars. There's this game's version of Mars's moon, which we're flying by right now. All right, I think that's about as close as we're going to. I know, we're going to get a little bit closer. So let's just maneuver. Let's warp out right there. And you can see the sun's a little smaller. There we go, 1963. Or in 62, they launched this thing, but in 63, it made it there. They lost contact with it, so they couldn't make any readings, but they know that this thing got pretty close to Mars. All right, so we've got a bit of a Mars flyby. That count on this? Oh, no. Peter, Paul, and Mary. All right, I think I'm gonna call that a day. Although I'm gonna be watching the Lord of the Rings show later on. All right, well, I appreciate everybody that showed up, and yeah, next year, obviously 1964. I will probably be continuing. I want to. At some point, we will have the Gemini program. We'll be sending some more elaborate probes to the moon, and also to Mars and to Venus. And yeah, should be interesting times. So thank you very much, and God bless. Jesus saves.